So when I was younger, I had a very supportive family. I guess you could call it normal, happy childhood. And I know when I was younger, I definitely was in love with animals. And I just had this like deep love for not only animals, but people. I was happy. You know, at a young age, I started to also feel different, you know, through certain experiences. That joy as a little girl started to turn through different experiences of sexual abuse. When I was 16, I ended up dating a guy. The reason I was drawn to him was as I was going through these different levels of abuse, I was seeking safety and people were afraid of him. And so I thought that it would create safety for me to, you know, be with him. End result was he actually raped me and was also raping girls around my hometown. I started getting involved in gang activities, connections, so I could seek that safety. And it was definitely false safety, but to me, it was the form that I needed to survive. As humans, we seek safety and we seek connection. And if we're not getting it in a healthy form, like I know for me, I sought it out in an unhealthy form and it filled that void. And especially since I was not seeking God, I had that God-sized hole in me too. When I got into the drug use, that was when I really felt I had found the answer. I just felt like if I can feel like this the rest of my life, I'm gonna be okay. That started the spiral, getting involved with some very dangerous people. And since at that time, you know, I had a car, the dealers would take advantage of that. At that time, I didn't know that I was being exploited. I didn't know that I was being trafficked. I couldn't even understand the definition of it, you know, until years later. The way that it happened to me was it started out with the connections to the drug dealers that I would drive, and then soon they would take the drugs knowing that I would be sick without them. They would use that to their advantage. When I would try to leave, it would escalate into threats, and the small threats would be fulfilled. So then I would believe that the bigger threats, you know, against my family, against their safety, and you know, knowing where their house was and, you know, everything like that, I started to believe like, well, I can't get out of it now. I remember I would get arrested. I would end up sitting for a good amount of time. I would feel so free in there, you know, and I know jail really seems like scary to people, but when the outside is so much darker, it makes jail seem like light. But I could not wrap my head around why I would get in jail and find this freedom in there, and then to get out and connect with the same people, you know, that were exploiting me, trafficking, and controlling me through the drugs and through the threats. And I couldn't understand how so quickly my brain would go right back to that false safety that I believed was there. My brain could not compute how to not do it because of the trauma responses and euphoric recall and this false belief that there was some type of safety there. I went through a program, anti-human trafficking program. It did wonders for me, and I, you know, was out of the cycle for about 2.5 years and had a really bad relapse. Ended up back in jail at an assessment house. I could not believe that I ended up back again. How do I keep doing this? And I mean, at this point, I was definitely at the end of my rope. Like, I was convinced I was gonna die in that relapse. And I think I had gotten to a point where I was okay with that. Since the cycles just kept going on and on, I was like, I'm useless. Like, I can't do this. I was exhausted, and I was definitely spiritually bankrupt. So when I'm looking at my options of where to go, I had an interview with Created Gainesville. I was very headstrong on staying closer to home, and I was praying a lot, and I wasn't liking the answers. When I did the interview to come to Created Gainesville, and I found out there was a butterfly garden in the backyard, and butterflies had always been a sign for me and God. Like in my heart and my spirit, I knew that God was leading me there. It was, I think, one of the most blind acts of faith I've ever done. I was welcomed with like so much love and warmth, and it was like I felt like I was home. And how they personalized it for me, even down to like the scent of soap, was like a soap that my mom would use all the time. And it was just like handcrafted to serve me. It took a minute to adjust to how much love was poured out on me, because I didn't feel worthy of it at that time. I didn't trust anyone, I didn't trust myself. But I knew I was supposed to be at Created. The healing that took place for me, again, it did take time. It's like I'm unrecognizable if I look back to when I first came in. And there's so much patience and understanding, vulnerability even from, the people working there, which made me feel safe. If someone else can be vulnerable, then I can be vulnerable. And it's just this like team approach to love on me and to make it my journey. I think that was one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, and it still sticks out to me, is what are your passions? What are your goals? What are your visions? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you want your journey to look like? And who are you? What is your voice? And it helped me like feel empowered. And even when I was unsure of the journey and I needed to process something, they helped me discover who I am. I've been able to build a life and move on to the next phase of my life with confidence and with a little fear and uncertainty, but that's life. I've been able to feel the full range of emotions and be fully supported during it. Have emotional breakdowns and processing sessions that didn't make any sense to me, but I was loved through it all. I was seen through it all. I was understood through it all. Since being at Created, like the love of God has been poured out on me 100%, like I've never experienced before. And that has allowed me to connect dots and see the full circle of, okay, this happened in my life, but now God brought me here, and this is where I'm supposed to be. So I can heal and I can become who I've always wanted to be, even if I didn't know what that meant when I first got there. Maybe this is new information. Maybe this is information you've heard many times. Maybe it's shocking. Maybe it's moving your heart. I just invite you into that place to help in any way that you can. Any form of support is always needed. For the survivors, for Created Gainesville, any movement of support can literally change a woman's life that's stuck in this cycle. And even having that understanding and trying to see where the survivor is coming from and what they need is so beautiful. We have the choice and the power to help end this type of stuff, to help heal people from this type of stuff. That is a form of changing the world. Helping people stuck in this find freedom from it. That is world changing, and that is empowerment, and that is pouring love out.
So as many of you know, Florida is ranked 3rd in the nation for reported cases of human trafficking. 79% of those cases involve sex trafficking. At Created Gainesville, we are aiming to create safe spaces for survivors to find hope, healing, and freedom. Currently, there are only enough safe beds across our country to serve 10% of survivors. That means that 9 out of 10 survivors looking for a safe place to go, to heal, to reclaim, are unable to find it. I invite you to consider joining us in creating these spaces of hope, healing, and restoration. Survivors are counting on us to not just lean in and talk about human trafficking, but to lean in with compassion, with grace, with mercy. We want to be that place where survivors in North Central Florida know they can turn and ask for help, and somebody is waiting to welcome them home. So I invite you to join us in welcoming survivors home, to experiencing a place of belonging, of being able to breathe, being able to rest, being able to reclaim a purpose that was always there. So I invite you to consider walking beside us as we continue our journey of building more safe spaces.